The Binational Endeavor Award is typically presented to a leader, business, or citizen who has supported efforts and demonstrated commitment to continuing fostering relationships and promote economic growth on both sides of the border. This year's recipient has done even more than provide professional support. She used her business acumen to reunite families and ensure children were cared for, all under a global spotlight. This year's recipient is Rita Fernandez, Director of Global Affairs for the City of San Diego. Ms. Fernandez was nominated and ultimately awarded for serving as Mayor Todd Gloria's city liaison to the San Diego Convention Center and to our federal, local, and nonprofit partners during the unaccompanied migrant shelter operation. In March, the federal government was in need of shelter space for young migrants under the age of 18 who had made the journey on their own to seek asylum, and San Diego answered the call. Ms. Fernandez helped coordinate services, organizations, and medical staff, working diligently to reconnect the children with their family members and to offer them the best care. The convention center staff working around the clock on site to foster a welcoming temporary home. The educators who volunteered their time to deliver lesson plans that served as a model for other emergency influx sites, and the volunteers from the federal government who traveled from all regions of the country, all working together to help these children. Her tireless efforts helped ensure the smooth operation of the migrant shelter at the San Diego Convention Center, in terms of reuniting minors with their family. So join me in thanking and honoring Ms. Rita Fernandez.
Thank you very much, Valerie. I am very touched by this recognition and was so happy to learn that I was receiving this award. I was actually born and raised in Chula Vista, so the South County for me is my home. I had the honor of working on the migrant shelter for unaccompanied migrant children at the San Diego Convention Center. And during that time, I saw the very best of San Diego in action. The organizations that worked just tirelessly to create this welcoming haven for these children who had just gone through just an incredible feat coming through Latin America, primarily from Central American countries, from the Northern Triangle, that came here in the hopes of coming into the US and seeking asylum. And for several months, I saw the convention center staff, the many community organizations that were there, SBCS, MAC. I'm going to get in trouble because I'm definitely omitting many of them. But Rady's Children's Hospital, who created a medical sort of unit there and offered medical services day in and day out. All the educators, the San Diego County Education Office, the countless volunteers, caseworkers, people that would contact our office just wanting to volunteer their time, to offer donations, everyone from, elected officials to everyday San Diegans who had read about the story on the UT and the news about what we were doing at the convention center and just wanted to help. It was just so inspiring to see our community come together. And these children really are sort of our new Americans, right? I know, I remember Congresswoman Escobar in El Paso one time referred to her border community as the new Ellis Island. And in many ways, she's right in that these children come in, and many migrants, many asylum seekers, their entry point is the border. And for many of them, it's San Diego. And so for us to be able to, in a very humane, compassionate, and generous way, open our arms and welcome these children. Although the vast majority were not staying in San Diego and were moving elsewhere, it was just so inspiring to see everybody come together. And lastly, I'll just say, I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I don't want to take up any time from the panel, that I, of course, wouldn't be who I am today had it not been for my family members, my family's immigrant story, and of course, my great-grandfather, who he himself was an unaccompanied migrant child at the turn of the century. And he later in life became a refugee. And it was through his experience that I was able to really put these children's experience into perspective. And it just became very eye-opening. And I carry his experience in my heart. And so for me, it was truly an honor to be able to work on this project. And huge kudos to everyone who was there on the ground. I played a very small role, but I really appreciate this recognition. And thank you again, South County EDC. Thank you, everybody. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rita. And we'll now turn it over to Dr. Diane Perez. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Rita. Thank you, Valerie. Well, welcome to the Binational Region and our Economy panel. We can think about San Diego and Tijuana as a unique region sharing a huge range of interests in many aspects. There is no way we can think of this region in a different way, but definitely the economic interests and projects are at the core. With the COVID-19 pandemic, our region has faced unprecedented challenges, and today I'm honored to moderate this panel with amazing personalities from our region. Before we start, I would like to please ask our two participants to briefly introduce themselves. So let's start with Jose Angel Mesa, Chief of Operations of Unlimited Electro Automation and Controls. Jose Angel, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me now? So my name is Jose Mesa, Unlimited Electro, Chief of Operations. We are an industrial automation-based company and distribution. So we export material mainly made in the US into all of Mexico and Latin America. And we also make custom machinery for all these processes.
Thank you very much, Jose Angel, and Carlos Antonio Flores, President and CEO of CoronadoDC. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me. It's an honor to be part of this panel and share my experiences from the unique experience of having a business that does binational business and operations. So as you mentioned, I'm the President and CEO of Coronado Distribution Company. CoronadoDC for short is what we call it, where we mostly work with the federal and state governments, helping them through acquisitions and logistical support. And we also have offices in Tijuana, Baja California, that kind of helps us better execute that support that we provide to the government.
Thank you very much, Carlos Antonio. Well, let's start. So working across international lines faces unique challenges for businesses and never more pronounced than throughout this pandemic. Please, Carlos, share with us some insights about how your business has been impacted operationally during this time.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, as I mentioned, we have employees are in both parts of the border, is that uniqueness of being able to cross in the sense of not understanding just the rules are in regards to our employees going down there, or maybe employees from Tijuana coming up here for maybe either just social events, gathering, brainstorming. Yes, we were able to leverage the technologies via Teams and Zoom meetings and that, but it wasn't quite the same as having those face-to-face interactions. So that was one thing I think that we had to overcome is, okay, how do we make sure that our culture of collaboration stays intact? And then in addition to that, I think the biggest thing is safety, because you're dealing with two types of different regulations that they had down in Baja California, Mexico, of this is how we're going to operate. This is what the government is allowing. Just like there was different rules of engagement here in San Diego, and it varied by county. I also have businesses in Riverside County, so having to juggle and understanding what are the rules to the road and how do we proceed forward was probably the biggest struggle that I probably faced.
Thank you, Carlos. Jose Angel, how did your company faces and work to mitigate the impact of the pandemic?
Yeah, in our case, we unfortunately didn't get too impacted. We have different divisions. One is manufacturing in Mexico, which really has no contact with the personnel in the U.S., and our personnel in USA hardly goes to Tijuana. So really, the only personnel that got impacted is the import-export personnel that had to cross every single day. But TVPs were really collaborative with work letters, and for essential travel, we were able to keep our operations running smoothly after the first couple of weeks that the pandemic started. I mean, other issues came into place, but mainly we were able to run smoothly.
Thank you, Jose Angel. Well, definitely employee safety and health is always a focus of employers. And well, during the pandemic, some measures had to be taken. What measures have you implemented to help ensure the health and safety of your employees? Carlos Antonio.
So the things that we went remote, just like everybody. So essentially, very limited staff coming into the office, and then we went to what we had called an A, B, and C schedule, meaning some employees will come in certain days. I think when it originally happened, I think most people were probably happy to start working from home and having that, flexibility. But as it started to go more into the months, we noticed that there was people that wanted to come back into the office. One, because either they were able to focus, work better in the office. Maybe I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I have young children, so they see me at the house. They want to play. Daddy has to work now. But so it was quite a bit distracting. So it was easier for me to try to work into the office. But to your point, understanding that as much as I want to be into the office to interact with the staff and the coworkers, it really wasn't safe for everybody to be in the same office at the same time, especially when the vaccines weren't out yet. So I think what we were able to do is just create a different schedule. So people that were probably more at risk, we just asked them not to come into the office, even if they wanted to come into the office. For those that did want to come into the office to take care of some work that could only be done here, they were allowed to come in, but with very limited staff and different schedules. And then we were also very conscious about disinfecting. So we had machines that would come in and disinfect pretty much every time there was a new crew coming in or a new team per se.
Thank you, Carlos. Jose Angel, next Monday we will see a huge change in our border. So we will start to see what we feel is at least closer to normal. How are you prepared for that, and what is going to change in your company when November 8 comes?
Yeah, well, as we mentioned, luckily we don't have lots of our personnel crossing the border other than our import-export. They all have sentries, so hopefully Sentry won't be too saturated. Having Black Friday and Christmas coming up, we're probably gonna have a lot of people trying to come for the purchases. I believe it's a good thing. The economy is gonna start getting activated. So for us, we're just gonna have to coordinate our people and myself better to try to spend less time crossing borders or look for the best timings. And yes, so that's mainly it. We just hope we get to see more the economy moving even more during this coming months.
How have the finances of your companies been impacted by the pandemic and by this closure of the border for non-essential travel, Carlos Antonio?
So the business which we're talking about right now, being that it's a government contracting business, we did see a dip in essentially supply chain. I think that's been an issue with some of our providers. We're not necessarily a manufacturer, we're more of a distributor. So our supply chain was impacted, which also impacted installation jobs or deliveries. So that was also impacting revenue, because if you can't deliver the product, you can't install the product, you can't bill for the services. So we definitely seen a cash flow constraint that we're, to be honest, you still dealing with, because supply chain is still an issue, at least in the industry that I'm in. In regards to a different business that I have in the restaurant business, that was heavily impacted by the pandemic. I had a restaurant here in downtown San Diego that unfortunately I had to close due to COVID. I also have one in Riverside that is still, knock on wood, still good to go. But it's definitely been a struggle with just how many personnel could be in a restaurant, just making sure that people are safe in the restaurant, making sure that your employees are definitely safe, and they're also making sure that other people are safe as well. So it's definitely been quite a bit of a juggle of just trying to understand how do you comply with regulations and utmost keep everybody safe.
Jose Angel, what are you planning for your business for the next year, for 2022?
Yeah, so I mean, as Carlos mentioned, there's a big problem with the supply chain. We are dealing with the same problems where we have to do down payments and we cannot conclude works. So the invoicing has become a big problem. And being a binational company, a lot of banks don't understand the structures, and they are not willing to give loans on invoicing that is based off of Mexico, because in a bad case scenario, they won't be able to collect that money. So even though we doubled our size in the last year as in sales and manufacturing of machines, we were benefited since because of COVID and the social distances, there's a lot of automation going on. A lot of robots are being installed. But we have the same problem with the cash flow. We have a lot of projects halfway done. So we right now have a project of a new plant being built in TJ. It's 5,000 meters squared, where we are planning to grow our inventories in order to fight this problem that we're having with the supply chain, and also try to get on smaller, faster to build projects to help our cash flow. But I mean, we can't complain. It's going good, but definitely supply chain is a big problem right now, especially with anything that's coming overseas.
Okay. Carlos Antonio, since the enactment last year of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, what have been the pros and cons for your business?
Well, I think a lot of the changes are still being rolled out, so it's still a learning process of understanding, okay, what are the new rules of the road per se. I think that the biggest one that I've seen of impacting is the quote unquote, from just in an industry in general, the offshoring perspective, where I think there's a big push for offshoring in Mexico, essentially to have more regulation where there's more benefit to the employee, where prior to, this is one of the things that I learned when I started doing binational business. The way you employ people here in the United States has different regulations down in Mexico, where over there may be more of a contract base, and sometimes people take advantage of those particular contracts to skirt certain benefits. So that's kind of what I see from the new enactment of just putting more teeth, more regulation to that, so more people are protected south of the border.
And in your case, Jose Angel?
Yes, I mean, since the movement, we've seen some changes on Mexican regulations, definitely. One of the one mentioning by Carlos, which it's become pretty much the outsourcing of personnel became not legal anymore, which, I mean, I think it was structured wrong, and hopefully it's going to get fixed. We also got big regulations on materials from it's called NOM, which is pretty much the UL from Mexico. That restricted a lot of exportation of material, which has become a problem. But overall, I think things are recovering slowly. At the beginning, it was pretty tough. I believe a lot of Mexican investors were scared of continuing to invest when the NAFTA was juggling around. Once we got the TEMEC coming in, everything reactivated. I think was part of our growth, and yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're just hoping for the best and trying to adapt to what's coming in as fast as we can.
What would your desire? What would you expect San Diego County to do for 2022 in order to have the best business solutions and best business practices, Jose Angel?
Ooh, that's That's a tough one. I think it's doing pretty good right now. But definitely, I think some kind of programs for binational companies where I think our main issue is the one I mentioned previously with the banks. I don't know how much can be done right now, but probably help us structure something new to help binational companies and their cash flows. I think that'll probably be the main one. I truly can't think of anything else. We're pretty happy in the area. Info Expert is pretty good when it comes to speed. And I mean, we're facing other variables like OTA, it's growing a lot. Prices are going high. We're trying to expand, and warehouses price are pretty interesting, which is part of the cash flow that we need to keep expanding. But I think that's what I can ask. Better plans for cash flow in companies.
Thank you, Jose Angel. And in your case, Carlos Antonio?
Well, I would just think that just creating a business-friendly environment can spur the economy. I mean, San Diego is a very unique market. It has several things going for itself. Obviously, you have the military-industrial industries. In here, you have a lot of bio, you have a lot of hospitality, and then you have a lot of resources down south of the border that we could depend on each other. So I think just having an opportunity of understanding and maybe putting together forums for people that want to maybe start tapping into the resources down in Baja California. And there's a need that I've seen as well for products that we manufacture here in the United States down there as well. So it's a two-way street. It's not just, hey, how do we essentially benefit from resources down there? I notice there's a lot of benefit from resources here that could go down there as well to spur that economy. So I think just maybe understanding that this is a unique market and how do we put together a platform of communications so when people do want to invest, they can better educate themselves. I know I just speak from my own personal experience. It was really a lot of trial and error, like, okay, why do we do it this way? Why is that? So it was just learning those rules to the road, and then you can make decisions. Where if I believe if the city and the county were to put more education out there for somebody that does want to invest or is thinking about investing, they'll be more likely to take a more educated, calculated risk.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. And Jose Angel, as a businessman, how did this pandemic change you? How did you feel? How do you feel after this pandemic as a businessman in order to face the coming challenges?
Yeah, definitely. It at the beginning created fear when it came to seeing a business that felt so stable becomes delicate. So we definitely are open our mind to savings, the kind of investment that we do, automating our processes. Even though we're an automation company, automating our software internally a lot more. And we also adapted a lot when it comes to flexibility with our employees. As the home office, everything's pretty much we're adapted right now to being remotely. And yeah, just made us understand that we need to keep up to date with technology and in the offices and be sure of the steps we're taking, because at any time something that feels strong and stable can just break down.
Yeah. And in your case, Carlos Antonio?
Yeah, I would say similar to Jose Angel is when it first started happening, I remember around December, one of my executives was saying, hey, there's this thing going on in Asia that we should be concerned about. And I was just saying, you worry, you're germaphobe, like just brushing it off. And then as it started getting more legs and started being more national news around February, then we started at that point thinking about, okay, what if we do have to shut down? What if? So we started having those conversations. And then in March, when I believe it was San Francisco, the first city to actually shut the whole city down, I would have never thought that would have happened, and let alone what end up pursuing afterwards that the whole world essentially shut down. So from that perspective, I think it opened me to things that I would think would not happen happen. So not be so narrow-minded as an individual and as a leader, of just saying, hey, take everything into account because it could happen. I think that's one thing that we learned. In addition to embracing technology, I mean, we were already essentially very communicative via Teams and Microsoft Outlooks and things of that nature. But really, when people started working remote, I think that added more, making sure that they had the proper tools to be successful working from home. Also, how do you stay collaborative? Because it's part of our culture to be collaborative, of talking about ideas, talking about solutions, and face-to-face, I think, adds another layer to that than maybe conversations that we're having here. So understanding, okay, how do we bridge that gap? How do we make sure that has continuity? I think that's something that was important to us, and really understanding this and embracing the work from home, work from the office environment, and having that flexibility that you see maybe larger organizations be able to offer those. As a small business, sometimes you think that you can't because everything needs to be controlled one area per se. But there's systems, procedures that you can put in place to still have that checks and balances, but also work productivity and work-life balance for everybody in the organization. So I think from a business perspective, it made us stronger in that, and be able to recruit people, not necessarily that in the San Diego, Baja California, is pretty much, you can pretty much work from anywhere nowadays and still be part of the team.
So you would adjust, let's say, these learnings from the pandemic, maybe being more accepting more your employees working from home remotely?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that even prior to, we were looking at providing some flexibility, because if you do market research, pretty much that was a trend that, you know, it entices people to want to work part of your firm. I think a big part of being in business is recruiting the best people, having them join your team, and growing the business. And we were already looking into that, but I think the pandemic kind of just put everything in the forefront to, you have to do it. And it wasn't just you, it was everybody essentially around had to adapt to that. So I think that was one of those positive things that actually happened out of this.
Thank you, Carlos Antonio. Jose Angel, did this possibility of working remotely and from home open up some possibilities to growing your business further, or more internationally, or more globally? Did this pandemic open your eyes to try to grow your business in a different way?
Oh, yes, definitely. Actually, when this happened, we started sending people home working remotely. And then we started actually seeing certain departments to become a lot more efficient, like our marketing department. You know, they loved it. They were working at home. I don't know how they're investing the time, but they were bringing results. So when we started bringing everyone back, they're like, I want to stay home. So we agreed on it. So they're actually still working from home. They don't want to come back. And when we started seeing that, we then ran into a problem here in the U.S. offices, because we were growing. We had a 30% growth this year, and we couldn't hire people because due to the stimulus checks, we weren't getting a lot of personnel applying. We actually, in 4 months, we had two resumes turned in, and unfortunately, people weren't qualified for the positions we had. So we had to open offices in Tijuana. And with the whole pandemic just passing and us being adapted to now work remotely, it was really easy. So right now we have new offices in Mexico for our sales team running. The team is growing, and seeing this, hopefully within the next months, we're going to be opening our offices in Mexicali too. And we are also considering even people just working at home and having the offices for shipping and receiving, saving a lot of space. And we can definitely also offer better salaries because it's a lot less investments on general establishment of the company. So yeah, it changed a lot. It made us see how easy it is to expand. without having to deal with the real estate and everything.
So this could be seen as an opportunity that maybe was hidden, but came out with the pandemic. And Carlos Antonio, in your case, do you consider there are still challenges to face after this pandemic for your company?
Yes. I think the one that we kind of mentioned from the beginning is the supply chain. I think that's a major issue of just importing raw material to finished goods. And there's some things that are outside of your control, and then you try to look at the economy in general, obviously looking into inflation and how that might affect the rates of lending. So as we're looking to grow, and if we need to get loans or capital, it's going to definitely become more expensive as well. So as I see it, as things go quote unquote back to normal, and there's maybe less government assistance, and you're going to see more of the economy out there, what we're going to end up a net result with, we're going to just have to do our best and navigate through those unknowns, but anticipating that there is probably going to be some rocky roads next year.
Thank you. This question I would like to ask both, and I don't know who would like to answer it first. What would be your advice to new investors, to new businessmen that are looking to our region and are considering to come here? Who would like
I'll go with Jose Angel if you want to go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough business right now. I think I'll definitely tell them to consider the whole remotely working stuff. It's definitely going to make it easier to kick off. I think that's definitely the hardest part of opening a new business. So getting offices set up, warehouses, and it takes most of your capital considered. So definitely consider the working remotely. And I mean, other than that, I think it's the same as always. Not much has changed, and definitely consider a product that you can get fast in the supply chain, and that will definitely put you in front of a lot of competition, since that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, and we can even see it in the automobile industry. I mean, Tesla being able to manufacture cars, they just did the big boom, and everyone else is stuck on whatever's not available in the market. So I think that choosing the right product and consider home office will be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Carlos?
Yeah, I would add to that is really educating yourself in the market of what do you want to be into. Jose Angel's point is what type of business you want to be. I think there's certain opportunities that the San Diego County, Baja California region represents. Advantages and some disadvantages. I also have offices in Memphis, Tennessee. So working in the state of Tennessee is different than working in the state of California. So there's some pros and cons to what is it that you're trying to do. I would partner up with people that are currently here. Council, there's obviously like South County Economic Development Council. Get educated on what are the rules to the road if you're going to be making a investment. But really, if I was to think what is the number one thing that is here, I believe is the human capital. San Diego offers a certain way of life that people carry themselves. There's certain benefits. There's a plus to being here. Although things are definitely becoming more expensive, at least from my opinion, as you're seeing things just because of inflation, things are just becoming more pricey, but there's still a lot of quality of life that this market represents as compared to maybe a Los Angeles, San Francisco from the human capital. And then I would have to say from my experience of employing people in Baja California, there is a desire, there is a talent pool there of people, a generation of young people in particular, I would say, that have something to prove, that have a desire to prove themselves and the talent that they have. So if you're looking at it from a tech perspective of understanding SQL, new coding, blockchains, things of that nature, there's rumblings that are happening. And I think if somebody's able to connect the dots between the resources that are here in the United States from a capital perspective with the resources of human capital down in Baja California, they can make something really magical.
that was my following question. That what fields do you feel have more opportunities? You already said the blockchain technology. What other fields do you feel that have more opportunities besides tech?
Well, I would say that from a manufacturing standpoint. So one of the things that we do is we try to connect essentially our markets together. So with Coronado, we mostly sell to the federal, state governments. So certain rules apply from country of origin. So Mexico has an agreement with the United States, so thus the federal government can buy through these products, as opposed maybe some products from overseas that certain regulations can't be sold through certain government contracts. So what I've seen is there's a lot of good, reliable, quality product that gets manufactured in Mexico that we're trying to find these companies and figure out, okay, what is the barrier of entries to produce more and sell to the U.S. markets. But as well, we also have a lot of networks here in the United States of products and leads that they receive in Mexico, but don't quite understand how to break through the market down there and sell their goods and their services down south of the border. So really just trying to connect the dots. Sometimes we're just an in-between where we're just saying, hey, this is the person you want to talk to. And sometimes we're the person that is actually brokering the deal, where we're essentially handling the logistics and things of that nature. But aside from a tech perspective, I think manufacturing, there's a lot of potential in Baja California. But then if you go venture down more south to Monterrey and Puebla, there's a lot of good products and materials that could be essentially brought to the market over here in the United States.
Thank you, Carlos. Jose Angel, if you had to promote the San Diego, Tijuana region among young entrepreneurs, what would you tell them?
Well, it's, I think I'm going to come back a little bit to what Carlos says. It's definitely the potential that the manufacturing has in the area, especially now, which I forgot to mention with the TEMEC. A lot of the manufacturing started coming down to Tijuana. You can see so many plants being built, and simply without even manufacturing, the import-export of this material, which I believe is what Carlos is involved in, it's a big area of opportunity, and it's connecting people that brings across the border, which even though we're right next to each other, they're so apart. No, they don't talk to each other in many cases, and that would be definitely the area of opportunity here in the area, and something that entrepreneurs should take a look at.
Thank you, Jose Angel. We have 2 minutes left, and I would like to ask each of you to give your final comments regarding the economy of our region and what's next. Please, Carlos, start.
Yeah, I would say that from the economy perspective, from what I've seen and what I've been, hospitality, government, and import-export, I think there's a lot of buzz that's going on. I think there's a lot of opportunities, but definitely you have to be smart about what you're doing. You have to be educated of the risks that are going to be taken. So just really calculated risk, and that's really what business comes down to, is understanding what the risk is and are you willing to take it, and understanding how much of that are you willing to gain or lose. I think it's probably like the best advice I can give anybody that's looking into doing more business here in this market and in these industries. But there's definitely a lot of good people, and at the end of the day, business is just dealing with people. And I think there's a lot of good people that you can be dealing here in this area.
Thank you, Carlos. Jose Angel?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to mention that Tijuana and general Mexico is a great opportunity to start your business. If you're low in capital, especially living in San Diego, where it's so hard to start something, definitely look into starting a business in Mexico, and from there, keep growing and try to bring it to San Diego. And I'm sure they can. It's totally possible. And also, as Carlos was mentioning, the personnel in Tijuana, it's really motivated. They're highly capable. And I mean, our manufacturing team down there, I wish I could show you right now some videos of what we do. And it's impressive what the engineers, speaking mainly from my side on the manufacturing, are capable of doing. And imagination and hunger that they have to create it. You know, so we're really proud of our team, and I'm sure there's so much opportunity down there. There's enough for everyone to keep and get into these businesses.
Thank you so much, Jose Angel, Carlos. Thank you for everyone, and a special thanks to the South County Economic Development Council for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.